And we've got it. Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar with Kinetics. My name is Scott Fennell. I'm a client executive with the Kinetics team, and it's a pleasure to welcome you today. Great to see a high level of attendance and interest from both our valued clients and new contacts, so welcome. Microsoft Copilot's been a major part of the AI discussions and interests throughout this year. And for many, AI within your Microsoft work ecosystem is of great interest, so we can understand. Housekeeping today. I've got a little echo, Ben. Housekeeping today. We will be recording the webinar to view and share later. Microphones are muted, but you can use these to ask in the chat questions later. And we do have someone moderating. We'll post a copy of the presentation in the Kinetics website within about 24 hours of completing. Today, Ben is our practice lead for digital enablement, and he helps people get the best out of their application systems and technologies. And this year, we have seen a lot of interest in Copilot and AI and the existing automations within 365. So Ben, can we pass it over to you?
Right, good morning everyone. Right, so just a wee bit, just tell you a bit about myself. So I'm practice lead for our digital enablement team, and in terms of how that relates to today, what I can do is help train you and your staff on Copilot and AI in Microsoft 365, help you utilize and build Copilot agents, develop systems workflows that utilize both AI and other automations within Microsoft 365, and also help you actually get your data in order. So that's a big part of today's webinar. If you're going to turn your data into a Copilot AI resource, then you definitely need your data to be in order. A bit around our topics today. We're going to start off with a look at data. Then we are going to take a look at Copilot agents. So a very new, so a pretty hot topic are Copilot agents within SharePoint. So that's super new. And then we'll take a look at Copilot Studio. That's the traditional place where you would build agents. And you may have heard of them before. They were originally called chatbots, and they have gone through sort of different iterations. So from being called bots to now being called agents. Okay, and with all things Microsoft, the way they work, the things you can do with them keeps evolving. Okay. We're going to run over a bit about other AI in M365. We tend to get caught up at the moment in all these generative AI tools such as Copilot, but there are other AI tools available to us. So tied in with that, we've got a wee little exercise that you may want to partake in. So it's a bit of a long email address there. So if you don't want to do it, by all means, don't do it. But if you'd like to send an email to me at my demo account, it's ben@cambiumpartnersdemo.onmicrosoft.com, and put in the subject AI reply. Those two things are very important. If you put a different subject in, it will not do what I will show you towards the end of the session. And as I say, in the body, inquire about anything you like, but keep it clean. Okay, we are going to look at some of these inquiries towards the end. So I'll just leave that up for another 10 or so seconds, so you can have a go at sending an email to that address, put the subject in as AI reply, and then you can put a short inquiry in there that you'd like to ask about. Doesn't have to be work-based, by the way. Someone was asking something around how to make butter chicken the other week when I did this. That's around about 10 seconds. Don't worry if you didn't get to do that. You can always look at the video recording and have a go at it there. I'm more than happy to feedback what that AI does with your email. Okay, so a look over data. This is our first topic. So Copilot and AI uses your data, okay, or uses the data that you point to. If you've got a Copilot subscription through Microsoft 365, or you're using Copilot Chat within Microsoft Edge, you will find it's looking over a whole heap of data. If you're using Chat within Edge, it's looking over web resources. If you are using Copilot within your Microsoft 365 tenant, you've got the Microsoft 365 Copilot license. It is looking over your work data, potentially web data as well. You can fine tune what you want it to do. Right. So what that means is it's looking over your SharePoint, your OneDrive, your emails, your Teams. But what if your data is not actually in shape? We tend to hang on to old stuff that we don't need. Policies get, updated. Sometimes the old policies are still left. They're stored somewhere. So all of that information potentially causes a problem when we come to use generative AI, because it's so good at looking over everything that it doesn't care if it's new or it's old. If we haven't got our data in order, it will simply look over it. So when generative AI actually uses that outdated or redundant data, you may hear of this term data staleness or data drift. Okay, there's a few other bits or phrases you may hear, such as garbage in, garbage out. So, I'm not saying anyone's data is garbage, but if you've got the old stuff in there, you could see it as being garbage, as it were, then of course you're potentially going to get stuff that you don't want. Okay, so those terms above, they describe the situations where the data used by the AI model, whether you're using Copilot to look at stuff, or you're using another tool with your data, or you're using another AI option within 365. That's where it's looking at the stuff that's no longer current or relevant, leading to inaccurate or less useful outputs. So let's just take a wee look at how that might look. So here I am looking at my Copilot agent here. It's called HR Agent, and it's actually running from within Teams. And I've got a HR policy question. Okay, so I'm just going to choose that categorization. What is our smoking policy? Right, there we go. I'll put that in. Okay. Now, what we'll find is our policy has not been updated for a wee while. So it's going to go back and get that information. And we'll see here, wow, yeah, definitely hasn't been updated for a while. Smoking is permitted in all areas of the workplace. So it got the most up-to-date information. There is no other smoking policy that it could source, but it shows you that old data, if you don't tidy it up, you are going to end up with those inaccurate or less useful outputs. Yeah, you could imagine now everyone putting an ashtray on their desk, or certainly the smokers if you have any, and firing up, as it were. Okay, so topic number 2, Copilot agents. Okay, so agents come in 2 forms, or 2 main forms currently. Okay, build your own with Copilot Studio. So as I say, this was traditionally called a chatbot. They are now known as agents or Copilot agents. And we saw a wee example of my one there that was able to provide the smoking policy to me, albeit that it was out of date. Okay, so you can build your own. So we're going to take a look at that in a bit, but we're going to start off with something very new, and these are agents that you can build in SharePoint. Okay, and as you can imagine, agents that you build in SharePoint look, at least initially, solely at SharePoint data. Okay, now if you have a Copilot license already, you'll know that, of course, you can search over your SharePoint content. but it looks over everything in every SharePoint you have access to, and also your OneDrive and your email and your calendar and your Teams. So potentially you get a lot of information coming back. So let's have a bit of a look at how SharePoint agents work. Okay, so every SharePoint site has one. Right. Now, as I say, this is reliant on you having the Microsoft 365 Copilot license. So if you're like, well, I haven't seen them in my SharePoint, if you haven't got that license, you're not going to see them. If you've got that license, you will find there is a Copilot icon in the top right corner of SharePoint now, okay, for every site that you go to. Okay, so every SharePoint site has a built-in Copilot agent, but you can actually build your own. A bit about licensing there. And everyone who has a Microsoft 365 Copilot license can create them. So there's no, stopping anyone else within your organization, if they've got that license, from actually building their own agents to look over the data they want them to look over, that they have access to, of course, and developing their own agent within there. Now, to be able to create one, there is a bit of control. You do actually need edit rights to a document library. So in theory, if I've only got read rights on a library, I can't create an agent in there. Okay, a bit like I can't create documents if I've got read rights to a library. They can be refined. Okay, so by default, and we'll see this in a moment, they just look at the source where you create the agent. For example, if I create it in my document library for client documentation, then it will only look through that client documentation. However, I could add in additional resources and sources for that. Okay. They can be edited further in Copilot Studio. Okay. So what that means, although they might start off simple and they simply give back information about the file set that you indicate when you set it up, you can expand them and get them to do automations and all sorts of other stuff and connect into other services that are available to you. So let's have a look at how you actually set up an agent and how they work. Now, I'm going to switch over to my browser, and I'll take you to a document library. So before I go in and actually create my own agent, if you've got a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, you'll find when you go into SharePoint now, you will have the Copilot icon up on here. And it's much the same as where you may have used Copilot within Teams, or you may have used it within Excel, Word, etc. You'll find that when you click on it, it's got some prompts that you can utilize. Summarize files, create an FAQ, compare the differences between files, or you can ask it questions using the box below. You can put your prompt in. Now, I want to actually do a more fine-tuned Copilot or agent. So I'm going to look at creating my own. So that one's still there. That's just part of being on this site and having that license. So what I've got here is I've got a stack of files within this folder that I want it to interact with. Now you can select anything from a single file to folders of files, or a whole document library's worth of files. So when I select that, what I can do is go to my dots and I can ask it to create an agent. Of course, on this, I have those edit rights. I can edit content in this library, so I'm able to create the agent. If I had read rights, I shouldn't be able to do that. Okay, so I'll choose Create Agent, and basically, it's telling me my agent is already ready. Now, it says data for my agent, and that's because my folder that I selected and created the agent on was called data for my agent. So maybe this isn't quite right. I want to refine it, make it easier to understand. Maybe I'm going to share it with other people later on. So I've got an option here to go and edit that agent. Okay, so once I'm in here, I can actually call it something different. So I'm going to call it data agent. you'll see I can go in and add a picture to it as well if I'd like to. I'm not going to. Okay, it's got a purpose on there. This agent is curated based on the content from the selected file sources. Yep, I selected that, so it did that. I could put more of a description in and ask it to be doing other stuff as well. So that's the identity. I've got the sources. Okay, so of course it's picked up what I've actually chosen as the source, because I started off by creating it from the source. Notice on that I can add further stuff, so it's not just limited to stuff in there. I could expand that. Simply choose the add and I'll be able to select other stuff. Okay, I'm not going to select anything else, so I'll choose cancel on that. Right. As we go to behavior, so I can tell it a bit about how I'd like it to behave. Okay, it's got some starter prompts on there for me. Of course, I could actually revise those. Notice these are what is showing over here. Okay, I can give it a bit of information about, what its tone is. So it says formal. Maybe I think I want it to be friendly. Maybe I want it to be humorous. I mean, you can put those in, try it out, and see what you think of its responses. And I can take it beyond this and actually go to advanced customization in Copilot Studio. Now we're going to take a look at Copilot Studio in a bit, so I won't go into it from here. I'm just going to come back to identity, check that I've got all those things right, and I'm going to choose save. Now, even if it's not quite right now, or you want to evolve it, you can do. You can go and edit it at any point. Okay, so I've gone and saved that. It tells me where it's actually saved it to. Okay, I'll show you that in a moment as well. And here is my data agent. Now, there's a drop down there because maybe I actually want to go back to the Copilot that works across this whole Sandbox site. It's called Sandbox Team, this site. Okay, but there we go. I've got my data agent. Right, so we'll look at asking it some questions in a moment, but before we do that, just to show you, there is my data agent there. Okay, so I could go and share it with other people as well. You can do that from here, the dots there. Notice I can choose edit. You can even mark up things that are approved or not approved as well, and revise it as required. So what I'm going to do on this is just ask it a few questions. So just bear with me. I don't want you to see the pain of me typing. So I'm going to put my prompt in. Let's just get rid of the bullet point. How many Excel files are in here? Hey, let's see what it does. This is a live demonstration on real data. Good. Okay, I found one file in there. Okay, tells me about it. It's got those citations, so I can actually go in, click on those, and look at it. Okay, so I want to know a bit more about it. All right, so I'll ask it, what does it contain? Okay, tells me when it was last modified, etc. as well. Okay, I know that file, so I can tell you that's pretty accurate what there is. So I'll go beyond that. I want it to be able to summarize the content as well. Okay. All right, got a bit of a summary there. Okay, now I'm sure if you're an Excel user, you probably know how to go in and filter, pivot, find answers from your data. Okay, but maybe I'm not quite that skilled in Excel, so I'm going to ask it a question about the data, even though I'm not in the file. Okay, so it's got that. Now, with all these things, I can go and copy those bits. Okay, now I actually want to send that on to someone. So, of course, I could copy it. I could go and put it in a Teams chat, or I could go and put it in an email. But let's just try one last thing on that, actually. Let's do an undo on that. I've copied that and pasted that information in. So if you ask it a request on there, we'll see with this, it can help me draft the email, but it wasn't actually able to send it. It didn't connect with Outlook. Now that's something potentially you will be able to do in the future. You can do it with your own Copilot Studio developed agents where you can trigger actions. But we'll see on here, I can now go and copy that, put that into suitable Teams post or email or whatever it might be. And I've got all that information from files within here without even having to open the file. So, of course, you might want to do some due diligence and actually open the file and check that information too, depending on what you are looking to achieve. Okay, so there's my agent. What if I decide that was a complete stuff up and I don't want the agent available? Well, you can simply go and delete the agent. Of course, it goes into the recycle bin for that particular SharePoint site, so it can be recovered as well. And there's something I found a bit humorous as I was going in and deleting old stuff on mine. I don't know if it will allow me to do it now. They may have changed it, but at one point there was an option that you could go and create an agent based on your agent. It looks like they've fine-tuned that and removed that option. Yeah, it's a bit novel, but watch out for that. Seems a bit strange. So that's creating our SharePoint agents. Super straightforward. Click on the option. Once you've chosen the files you'd like it to look over and then utilize it. And that's just there if you've got that Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Okay, so we're going to move on to topic number 4, Copilot agents. Okay, sounds similar to what I was doing a moment ago, but this is actually looking at developing a Copilot agent from the ground up using Copilot Studio. Now, I think going back to about a year or so ago, this was probably something only developers would do, and you really had to map out what you'd want your agent or chatbot, as it was known then, to actually do. You had to map out the type of queries it would be dealing with, how the flow of conversations would happen as well. But now it's way easier to create one, and you can utilize generative AI and the knowledge sources you specify for your agent to work and assist people. So how do you actually build these? Well, you actually do it in Copilot Studio, so we'll go into that in a moment. And there's a slight difference in licensing, or you could call it a huge difference. If you've got a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, you do have access to actually building your own agents in Copilot Studio. However, that's not necessarily the route everyone is going to go down. So there is actually a separate organization licensing just for Copilot Studio, where you can develop your own agents in there. Might be you never go down that Microsoft 365 Copilot license route. Also, before I go into a bit about the creating topics and the sources you choose, just coming back to Copilot Studio, you can actually do a trial license as well. Okay, so you can't really do that with Microsoft 365 Copilot licensing, but the Copilot Studio, you can do a trial license, so you can run up a proof of concept, as it were, something we could certainly help you with, and get an agent built, and then decide on its use, whether it has value to you before actually, putting it out to go live and, incurring the costs that would be associated with that. Also with this, it's a month by month cost as well with that Copilot Studio licensing. It's not the annual commitment like there is with the Microsoft 365 Copilot licensing. Okay, so you can create topics, you can choose your sources. Okay, you can use Copilot to get code to build out caller agents. So this wee bit here, where it's asking someone to record their mileage record, and it's giving the information there, you can build these things called adaptive cards, and it's really easy to get the code to build an adaptive card. You just go and ask Copilot in your browser to do it. It's pretty good at that. Okay, they can be both internal facing, as you could imagine, but also external. So people develop these and put them on their websites. Okay, they can even be put on Facebook if you want people to interact with, your agent there. Right. So let's have a wee look at how an agent works, a bit about what it can do, and we're going to start off by actually building one. Okay, so here I am in Copilot Studio. So there it is there, copilotstudio.microsoft.com, and I'm going to choose the option to build a new agent. Okay, so it asks me here, what are you going to call your agent? Now, actually, I'm going to cancel that because this is probably I say old-fashioned. This is the method that you maybe would have applied 6 to 12 months ago, is if I leave from here and I actually go create from the side, what I should find is if I go new agent from here, it should actually let me build it with Copilot itself. Problem with a live demo, doesn't always work, so looks like I am going to have to do it the old way. Okay, so here we go. I'm putting my description in. I am going to call it legal assistant. Okay, or legal agent. Okay, so I could put a bit in about what I'd like the behavior to be as well. Okay, I'm just going to leave it as that. Create your only use there. But you could be putting in what tone you want it to do, that you only want it to use specific resources, as it were. I'm going to leave that a bit open for the moment there. I'm going to go add knowledge. From here, I'm going to add in some knowledge sources that I would like it to use. So I'm just going to use some publicly available sources here. So just bear with me as I drop those in. Of course, with all of these things, you can evolve these and add additional stuff in as required. So I'll just get a few different ones in here to make it richer. Okay, you can put a bit of a description in there too. What I mean by that is if you do that, that will also help guide it as it actually uses it. You may want it to act in a certain way with that source. Let's just go for one last one. Okay, I'll just go add on that. So there's my knowledge sources, and I will go create. Okay, so it's as simple as that to get going. Okay, now, of course, you may want to refine it. So it's got on here, hello, I'm a legal assistant, a virtual assistant. Now, you can actually change all of this information. It's underneath what we call topics on how it introduces itself. Okay, so let's see what it can actually do. Okay, so here we go. Not that I've been arrested recently, but what should I do if I'm arrested? Okay, let's fire that away and see what results actually come to it. Okay, so there we go. It's picked up from that community law resource, this information here. Of course, I can go and actually look at that. It gives me an option here to open it up there. So pretty cool. It's already looking through these different knowledge sources and giving me an answer. Let's put one last one in there. Like all things with generative AI, you probably want to do things like restart conversations. So there are a few topics that are generally built where you can ask it to restart, you can say goodbye, etc. So it doesn't get continue the conversations. I'm just going to choose to refresh here while I'm using it in test mode. So can you provide a list of barristers in Auckland? Again, I'm at the mercy of what it can put into here, as it were. So if it's got that information in there, we'll find it. Okay, retrieve documents taken down. Okay. Okay, but it gives me something where I can follow up on there. So pretty handy. I've got it as all external resources there, but again, you can choose internal resources as well. You can actually upload documents as well, so it doesn't have to be pointing to, websites or, SharePoint libraries. You can do it from there. So let's have a look at some of the other things you can actually do with an agent to give you a bit of feel for that. So we saw earlier on with my agent that I asked it about a policy question, and it told me the smoking policy. So I'll just give you some examples of some of the bits we've got going on here. I'm asking it who is on leave today. No staff members are on leave today. So it's actually gone away, and it's looked at our Kinetics leave and absence list. Okay, pretty cool. We're all on board today. Okay, or at least we were first thing this morning. So that's actually gone outside of here. Let's have a look at a couple of other examples. I'm going to switch over to my demo one here as well. Okay. So there we go. I've found the policy. I'm going to ask it if it can send a link to this policy to Kyle. Okay, so pretty cool. It's gone and sent a link to that policy to Kyle. You might go, well, that's pretty dangerous because it didn't take me into an email application to do any of that. So rest assured, there is an action that has been created for the HR agent that allows the emailing of information. Now, you've got to be pretty careful because when I set this up, I was thinking that when you ask it to draft, it's going to respond back with a draft response, a bit like what I got when I used my SharePoint agent a moment ago and got those Excel figures and got it to put it into an email. It drafted it for me and I could copy it. So much to my surprise, when I did it with this, it just went ahead and drafted the email and sent it. And I'd said, right, can you send this to all staff? Fortunately, it didn't send it to a real email address. There wasn't one called all staff, and the email address didn't exist, so I got a bounce back. But was slightly worrying. Of course, you can control what your Copilot can do in terms of this, but these agents are super smart now. If you've set up that you can email within the agent, it will look at what you're trying to do and it will try and do it. So there we go. There is someone called Kyle within my organization, or at least within the demo version of the organization, and it will have gone and sent that to Kyle. Okay, pretty cool. Okay, I'm just going to do a restart on this just to give you a couple of other examples, and then we'll move on to our final topic for today. Okay, so just to show you here, I've got a similar thing, the who is on leave today with this one. So you can guide by having choices. There we go. On the demo tenant, I'm actually on leave. Of course, I'm not. I'm here. And again, you can follow it up with prompts as well, including being able to rate things. We'll see on there. rate the experience, let's give it a 5. And all of these things can actually be monitored as well. So sitting behind my agent, if I go into the HR agent, I'll find that there's actually a Power BI dashboard, so I can look at how it's actually been used. If we are gathering what are called CSAT ratings, what those ratings actually are. Okay, so we've got some analytics here. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, they've actually even changed this wee bit here, so there's all sorts of stuff you can be clicking on and looking at from within this. Cool. Okay, so that concludes our bit on agents. So just taking us back to what you did earlier on, if you sent through a if you responded to the exercise that was in, is just remember or remind you or let you know that Copilot is not Microsoft's only AI. Just like Copilot isn't the only generative AI out there in the world. We've all heard of ChatGPT, of course. So there is within Microsoft 365, there is something called the AI Hub. There is also something called Power Automate, and both of those tools allow you to use AI and automate things happening, automate workflows. So just to show you, I'll come to see if there were some real life responses on here. So you'll start to see I've got some messages that came in with the subject AI reply. So here's one from Richard. What year did Doctor Who first air in the United Kingdom? Now this comes down to what I don't know if I'll get to the right response, so I'll just go through some different ones here. Is what I've got AI to read the email. Okay, I've not picked up the Doctor Who one here, of course, but respond back to the email with a response. Now, I haven't got it to automatically send the response because, of course, it would be worthwhile reviewing it. So this one here, I've got a feeling this is in response to one of my colleagues who's on the webinar, Jason, and you'll see on there it actually responds back. It says, right, we think the reply should be, Dear Jason, boom, 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 and here's an example of this. And that can be approved or rejected, so it's actually for review. No, it isn't just that it's gone and sent it, or I've got to now forward it. I could approve or reject that. I could actually update it, and utilize it as well. Okay, so I will leave that there, and we are going to wrap up with a bit of Q&A.
Thanks very much, Ben. We've got a couple of questions. One from Nick, and I'll just get that question. Can an agent, for the agent that's in the SharePoint library, do the others that use it need the Pro license, need the Copilot license to use the agent?
For those ones that sit inside SharePoint, you have got to have a Microsoft 365 Copilot agent license. Sorry, I shouldn't say agent license, a Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Yeah, there's no way of avoiding that. However, you can build an agent from Copilot Studio that looks at SharePoint sources, much like you saw my HR agent, where I was able to ask things about policies, documents that existed in the sources I choose, such as a specific set of SharePoint documents or SharePoint pages, and even those external options as well.
Thanks, Ben. We've got a couple of, we've got Alistair and David have also commented that they have the Copilot license, but can't see the options in SharePoint. I think that's what they mean. They can't see the options in SharePoint to create what you were doing during the demo, Ben.
Now, it is a very new feature. So it might be that Microsoft have not rolled it out to all tenants, but I'll just bring you back to, I know when it came live for us here at Kinetics, it was, there was a big fanfare when I went and visited all the different SharePoint sites that I use, with it coming up on screen and letting me know about it. I've got a feeling they might be doing it's pretty typical of Microsoft. They might be doing the staggered rollout, but I'd definitely go into a document library. I'll just remind you of how it looks on my screen as well. So just bear with me as I do that. I'll just come to home on this on our sandbox site. So you'll see in here, even when I'm on the main page, I have got that Copilot icon up there. So once you do get it, it is obvious it is there. Okay, sounds like it might be that they're doing a staggered rollout. Of course, if you are a Kinetics client, feel free for us to, we can take your query on board and raise a ticket with Microsoft on your behalf to find out more about that. But it might just be a little bit patient and review it in a week or so, because they do tend to stagger their rollout of features.
Thanks, Ben. I hope that helps, Alistair and David. Alistair, I think you are visiting us tomorrow for a session, so perhaps we can cover that off in a bit more detail. We've also had a question, can the Copilot agent sit inside Word and be used for drafting letters and documents in Word? Great question, because I've been thinking about this one too.
Okay. Now, what you have within, I'm just going to bring up my copy of Word, and I'll bring up a blank document and just bring it on screen. So if you do have Copilot, the Microsoft 365 Copilot license, you will find that you do have the Copilot icon. And what there is there's this thing called Manage and Search Plugins. Now you'll see on mine, the only plugin I have on here is Web Content. Okay, so there is potentially the option to develop what they call plugins from Copilot Studio and then leverage those plugins within different Copilots. I can't say if there's one that will meet your exact requirement there, but potentially there could be. Where I've seen this, where it's a bit easier to see, and it might be more about how Microsoft actually do things, is if I come into Copilot in Teams, and just bear with me while I do this and bring it up on the screen. You'll find here I can start to see these are some of the other plugins that we've got, and you can publish plugins. You create them in much the same way from Copilot Studio, like I built my agent, and then they can be leveraged in here. Notice there's a whole heap of pre-built ones, depending on systems that you actually use that can be added in. But you'll just see here, if I actually ask it to use web content, then even though I'm on the work chat option, it's going to look over the web. And we use a system called ConnectWise here. And it might be that when I chat with Copilot here, I want to use that agent / plugin as well, so I can actually search across items with that, all from my one Copilot. So there's all sorts of different bits that you can potentially be doing within there. Okay, so that takes us to our wrap up. So what next? Well, to find out more about how you can get your data in order, and by the way, getting your data in order, although we might say it's a prerequisite for using Copilot and Generative AI and within SharePoint, Microsoft 365, basically it isn't solely based on that. You should be getting your data in order anyway and making sure that you're dealing with old redundant stuff and that you've got your sharing and your security and permissions in order on your data. your governance, basically. We can also, if you want to find out more about how you can leverage those Copilot agents, or basically anything to do with Copilot AI automations in Microsoft 365, please do contact me. There's my email address there. Once I hear from you, I'll also share with you our AI services catalog that's got the whole range of services that we do actually offer in terms of AI at Kinetics, and it's not solely focused on the Microsoft stuff. So, just reach out and let us know what you are looking to do and what you need assistance on. I'll hand it back to Scott to do a final wrap up.
Thanks very much, Ben. I really appreciate the sessions you run on Copilot, and they've all sort of evolved throughout the year. Someone's late question was, will there be more sessions? We actually haven't decided what our webinar is for next month, so please, if you've got my email address, you can email me. Alternatively, you can email Ben if you have any ideas. We're open to ideas and suggestions. There are a lot of all our previous webinars are on the Kinetics website under the events page, so you can go back and have a look at previous content. So hopefully that will help. I guess my sort of takeaway is something was said to me earlier this week. The best thing about AI is all the possibilities, and the worst thing about AI is all the possibilities. And I think that speaks volumes, and figuring out what to do with it is key. So if you do need some assistance, we're open for a chat, and we do have some skilled professionals like Ben who can help with things, help with discovery and any specific requirements. Thank you all for attending. I hope you found it insightful. The recording will be up in 24 hours or so, and see you next time. Cheers.
Just before we disappear, just before we disappear, there's another question from Matt Early.
Oh, yes, there is too. Thanks, Vaughan. So can AI Copilot assist with producing technical reports? So it's probably a deep dive question, Matt. We know Copilot can do some fantastic summaries of documents. We've used it ourselves. We've seen clients use it. So it might be worth diving into that requirement and actually testing it. I hope that helps. I know that you do talk to the Kinetics team, and perhaps we can dive into that. Does that help, Vaughan? Okay.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, everyone. Take care.